Okay, so it's time to recap the games of the past week for the Leafs, starting with the game on Tuesday, November 2nd, against the Golden Knights, where we won 4-0. Probably one of the best games of the season. If not this game, then it was definitely the game later that week against the Bruins. One thing I wanted to say about this game, though, is in reference to those who are deflating or who deflated the Leafs win and saying they won only because it was a deflated Vegas team. Well, yeah, that's exactly what happened because that's exactly what was supposed to happen. If you have a team going up against another team that has a ton of injuries and absences in their lineup, you should sure as hell hope that your team is going to demolish them and come away with a huge win, a blowout win. And that's exactly what happened here. The Leafs took advantage of their deflated lineup and all their injuries and absences, and they had a blowout game. They won 4-0, which is exactly what was supposed to happen. And the funny thing is, if we had lost, or even if we had won by one goal, like say the game was 2-1, the Leafs would have been ripped apart by Leafs fans, other fans, analysts, anchors on like TSN and Sportsnet. The headlines would have been Vegas had no one and the Leafs still lost, or it would have been Vegas had no one and the Leafs almost blew the game. That's what it would have been. So now that the Leafs do what they're supposed to do and they win 4-0 against a deflated team, they still get ripped apart, which literally makes no sense to me. And even though there might have been Leafs fans that were hyping it up, I was probably one of those people. They might have been hyping up the win so much because of how the season started and how it was going up to that point. You can't be totally ignorant of the situation that the Leafs had been in. It was a slow and bad start to their season. The week prior to that, they almost lost against Chicago. And then I think there was another bad game that Saturday. So they didn't have the best start. They weren't having the best couple weeks. So the fact that they came and won this game 4-0 was a huge momentum booster for the fan base and for the team themselves. And with the Leafs, we know that against lesser teams, lower teams, like if they were to play the Habs or Coyotes right now, for example, it's very likely that they might lose the game because it's like the Leafs when they play against those types of teams to have a hard time coming out with a win. And it's one of the biggest mysteries for Leafs fans, and it is unsolvable. We don't know why it happens that way, but that's what happened. So also too, in a game where some fans or some people might be saying, the Leafs are going to lose because look, Vegas has no one and it's just like the Leafs to lose a game like this. They come out with a blowout win and they're still criticized so much. So, as is the theme with the Leafs, there's no way for them to win. Now, other notes on this game, Marner had an unreal game, continues to improve beside Tavares. Still really happy that Keefe made that decision to split up Matthews and Marner because it's helped Tavares, it's helped Marner, it's helped Nylander, and it's helped Matthews. So it's done nothing but help the team, which is great. Matthews also had an unreal game, 2 goals. And another thing to note too, shots for Vegas were low, which is a good defensive sign for us, even if they were losing good players or missing good players. But what I noticed is that the Leafs did slow down a bit in the third, where Vegas's shots started to pile up. I think they climbed from like 12 to 25 or something like that. But for the most part, they did a fantastic job. It's just those little hints of, I'm not going to say panic, but those hints of like areas of concern where you see like, yeah, they had a great defensive game, they won 4-0, but also paying attention to the fact that they kind of started to take their foot off the gas a bit, which we don't want to see them do, because once a team starts climbing back, you could totally lose your footing and lose all your momentum. And so that's something to watch out for, that they need to kind of get under control sooner rather than later. But regardless, it was a fantastic game. And then rolling into the Thursday game, November 4th against Tampa, where we won 2-1 in overtime, that was one of the most frustrating games I've watched in a really long time, because it just perfectly describes what it means to win in true Leaf fashion. That's what this game was. That's what it means to win in true Leaf fashion. So to start, there were way too many odd man rushes for Tampa. There were, I think it was three or something alone in the first 5 minutes of the game. So the defensive coverage was poor for basically a good part, I would say majority of the game. The defensive coverage was horrible. The first thing that comes to mind for me is I think it was the first Tampa goal. There were 3 Leafs back to cover. So we made it back. Great. But they all left the left side of the ice wide open, and Maroon just flew down, and he was able to clearly receive the pass and get a clear shot off. Now, this one could also be credited to Muzzin being his fault, because I don't know what he was trying to do in the offensive zone. He pinched in, which is fine. Defensemen want to pinch in. But I don't even remember what he was trying to do. He held on to the puck for too long. I think that's a good way to describe it, and lost it. But also in his defense, he did pick it up. He did skate back hard. He made it back. But it was also equally the fault of the forwards I don't remember who it was, but whoever was the forward who failed to cover him when he pinched in. And the Leafs fall victim to this a lot. There are countless times where a D-man will pinch in and no one will go back to cover, and then once the D-man pinches in, and normally they hold on to the puck for too long before getting a shot off or passing it, and then they get caught, no one's there to cover, odd man rush the other way. That's basically what happened throughout this entire game, or majority of this game anyway. And then to build off of that, so that's kind of where our defense was very poor. But also on the offensive side, way too many fancy plays, way too many fancy passes, and half of the ones that they try to make, like, they make no sense. It's like, why are you even trying to do that? They have to stop this now. The waiting too long to shoot and the million passes before getting a shot off. It happened all the time last season, and we're seeing it start to come back. They just have to get it to the net, get it on net, and go for the rebounds. Shoot from the point, get it on net, and someone will swoop in for the rebound. Just try and get those types of goals, because those pretty passes and pretty shots, they're not going to show up all the time, so you can't bank on the fact that Matthews is going to get his perfect shot off every time, or that Marner is going to make that perfect pass every time, because they are not going to be able to. So they definitely need to work on getting the puck off their stick faster and making less passes. All right, so then there was the hit that Sergachev laid on Marner. He got suspended 2 games for it, which I think is fair. It was a hit to the head, and he lifted his shoulder, very clear. He lifted his shoulder to make contact with Marner's head, and it was completely avoidable and completely unnecessary, because it was just Marner and I believe it was Hedman. It was just the two of them, and Sergachev literally came out of nowhere, and he didn't have to. He did not have to. He came out of nowhere, and he could have hit his arm, he could have hit his shoulder. He lifted his shoulder to hit him right in the head. So it was completely avoidable and unnecessary. But this hit did lead to a 5-on-3, which was absolutely horrendous. And again, it's everything that I just finished describing. Too many passes, trying to be fancy, trying to deke the team out. And with that much talent on the ice, and with a 5-on-3, how does something not go in the net? It's very confusing. Like I said, this game was very confusing and very frustrating. But this power play does need to change, and I know that this week their power play was a bit better. It was 50%, 4 goals on 8 opportunities, which is better than what it was last week, I believe. I don't remember the exact percentage. But it has been improving. It's just been improving too slow. and it has been improving inconsistently. So there will be one game where they get 2 power play goals on 4 opportunities, which I think was on the game Saturday against the Bruins. And then there will be games where, like this one, they don't score on a 5-on-3. So the goal for the power play is to have it consistent. And in a game like this, where this is the perfect example, in a game like this, where they were losing and they were trying to climb back, and it was just one goal, right? It was 1-0. They were trying to climb back. They were trying to get that goal to come back. In a game like this, it's a perfect example of how the loss, if they had lost, it would have been completely the fault of that 5-on-3 power play not scoring. That would have been the cause of their loss, missing that 5-on-3 opportunity. And that's why I keep repeating, getting your power play going consistently is super important, because it's instances like this, games like this, where it can make or break your game. So that's why it's super important that they get this under control and they get it more consistent. Give Sandin a shot more consistently on the first unit. See what happens. He moves the puck faster. He moves the puck more consistently and he does so smarter. Give him a shot there. You know, try bunting on the first unit. You got to try these different things. I just don't see them trying anything different throughout these games with their power play, which I think is concerning. So back to the game. Also, the chances we were getting were low. And when we did get chances, they were poor quality and poor execution, which is the opposite of what it has been for majority of the season, where we get a lot of opportunities that are of high quality, just bad luck. So even though I'm bashing the Leafs this game, they did pick it up towards the end of the game, which the Leafs often do. They pick it up, most of the time, they pick it up too late. So they started to pick it up towards the end of the second period specifically. Tampa had no shots for, I believe it was the entire second half, or most of it anyway, the second half of the second period. And I think into the third, they extended their streak of having no shots. So that was a good sign to see, because we saw the ice starting to tilt. But regardless of how hard they might have tried to come back, and they succeeded in coming back, the game goes to Campbell. The only reason they came through with this win was because of Campbell. And he saved them so many times throughout this game, especially towards the end. There was one pad save that I'm thinking, well, there's multiple that I'm thinking of, but he kept them in that game. And if it were not for him, they would have lost, because they played so shit in the beginning and they waited until the end to pick things up. So kudos to him for giving them that chance. And then the last game, one more note. It was good that they came back, like I said, and that they kept at it and they didn't give up. And the only reason I think they didn't give up is because Campbell kept it a 1-goal game. I should add that. But they have to start these games stronger. They can't be waiting. It's happened a few times this season where they wait until the end to start playing, and oftentimes it's too late. So moving to the last game, which was Saturday, the 6th against the Bruins, we won 5-2. Great game. Another really strong game. Again, contender for the best game so far this season. It was a physical game. It was an offensive game. It was a defensive game. It was just all around perfect. I loved this game in terms of the style that they played with. You also look at the power play. They went 2 for 4 in this game, which is great. Obviously, you want them to go 4 for 4, but the way things had been going in the last game with their power plays, it was great. It was great. They went 2 to 4 on the power play. PK was doing well as well. So it was everything that we could have asked for, I think. They were making hits. Kasha and Richie, they stepped up against their old team, which was good to see too, and it was good to see them get the win against their old team. So all around, it was a great week. Those are your recaps for this week. Let's hope that next week's game recaps are just as entertaining and just as positive.